All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Friday Mastermind. Every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific, for the past 8 years, we have been putting on this mastermind. Deborah Bird joined Todd and I as the co-host about 3 or 4 years ago. What's up, D Bird?
I'm so proud of you, Dave. You've gotten the 8 years down. I think almost every Friday you used to say, I think it's about 6 years we've been doing this, right, Todd? But you've gotten it down. So good job.
Well, I'll have that screwed up in a couple weeks. I'll be saying 8, 9. All right, guys. So we have a really cool. Well, wait, before I bring on Hunter, Deborah, anything you want to say him to frame the call? You're going to have your role as the mortgage industry's top social media consultant and the head of Win by Noon. Anything you want to say before we bring Hunter on stage?
Well, I think it's just such an important topic that we're going to talk about. And it comes at a great time where we're starting to head to the end of the year. And I feel like when we start the year, we have these goals, and we may have even reverse engineered to know exactly what activities we need to do in order to achieve those goals. But sometimes not all of us are great at keeping track of the numbers or even knowing how to keep track of those metrics, because they don't have an easy workflow of, counting their leads and then how many of those leads actually applied. And so I'm really excited to hear just from Hunter and his expertise of how he measures the metrics and how he helps people possibly increase those conversion numbers. But it starts with knowing your numbers. So if you don't know your numbers or you haven't been tracking, go ahead and choose a time from now until the end of the year and time block and try to get the numbers that are going to be discussed today to see at least where you're at. Because if you don't know where you're starting from, you don't know how to improve. So I would just like to start with saying knowing your numbers is essential for clarity in your business.
Awesome. And so before I actually introduce Hunter, I want to frame the call because I think it's also interesting. And I don't know if it's the holidays or if it's the headline, but there aren't quite as many people here as we usually have at this point in the call. And that's because it's metrics, like not a sexy topic.
Well, I mean, that makes
And
me feel great, by the way. Lowest attendance ever. Hunter Marckwardt.
I did not say that. I did not say the lowest attendance ever. I just said we do have more attendance usually, but I do think it's also the holidays. But just make a note of that. And then the headline, guys, is the market matters, so rates matter. But you know what matters a whole lot more? It's your sales metrics, and it's the consistent execution on best practices that influence those metrics in a positive way. And I know because I interview a lot of top performing loan officers, and I know a lot of people that are doing a lot of business. I know Hunter's numbers because he shared his numbers publicly. I think you're at 144 million and some change right now.
Yep.
Is that?
Yep. Literally, that's the number.
Yeah, because it's in his Sunday thoughts. And I am infinitely clear that if you obsess over your conversion metrics, it will raise everything. It'll raise your confidence, it'll raise your income, it'll raise the quality of the service and value that you give to borrowers, and it will actually make you more valuable to realtors, and you will get more realtor referrals and you will recruit more realtors. Like literally, it is the number one metric that will drive success in your business. It's just like a waterfall. And so I've been talking a lot about that on social media. I've been interviewing people. And then this Sunday, if you do not follow sundaythoughts.com, I'm going to put a link to it with the article that started this conversation. But Hunter Marckwardt, one of the top producing managers. So he does lead and provide support to a lot of loan officers, leadership and training support. And then he does a lot of business. He writes about this, and it was just like, okay, we gotta jump on and talk about it. So welcome, Hunter, everyone. Use those reactions. Give him whatever reaction you want. He's going to get a heart from me. Oh, it looks like I'm the only one that gave him a heart. So I'm just kidding. You got some more hearts.
I mean, the way this started, no, I'm happy.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is, I mean, I will just announce an insecurity. I will just flat out say it. I was going to talk to you about it before we started, but I had to jump off with a minute. I was like, I mean, Jeremy's one of my dear friends, right? And I was going to ask you to tell, like, looked at the last one you and I did together, and it's like, 600 views. And someone else has got 400 views. I'm like, Jeremy's got 1,200 views. I'm like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I would never want to go head to head with Jeremy on stage, but I mean, like, what is it? Like, what, I mean, is it like when we talk about metrics, right? I mean, now granted, I do my best actually. This is, I mean, Deborah will probably be like, Hunter, you're thinking the wrong way and we should probably talk more. But it's like, I try to stay off of the Facebook. I try to stay off of thumbs up and all that, I mean,
Yeah, so Deborah,
say that again.
you called it the Facebook.
Did I call it Facebook? I
You
didn't call it the Facebook.
The Facebook. You said
If I called it
Hey,
the
at least you
Facebook,
didn't say MySpace, okay? Like, so
I
we're
know
good.
it's Facebook. I know it's Meta, whatever. But when we talk about metrics, even with that, right? I mean, you would say, I mean, if it's something that's important to you, I would say, well, if Jeremy's getting 1,200 and I'm getting 600 and someone like, why is that, right? I mean, is it the value of your content? Is it is it the fact that you're more present on social media, whatever, right? But I mean, it really does go back. And then to be able to ask about it, I mean, I was thinking about talking to you on, afterwards, like, hey, give me feedback on how these calls go. Because if there's something I can do to improve, that's valuable information, right? So it's no different than looking at metrics on loans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, by the way, I just put you into our group or into our YouTube channel. And the first video that came up got watched 1,500 times 2 years ago. It was called the number one strategy he's telling LOs he coaches. So headlines matter. And, but if anybody didn't get the tell, Hunter's very competitive. He's very data driven and he's always looking to win in case you didn't connect the dots from everything that just happened, which is also a really great characteristic of, top producing loan officers. So Hunter, before we get into this, well, we already got into the topic, but just tell everybody a little bit about your team so they kind of know what the team looks like that does that volume. And then I also know you have some type of a leadership role at cross country with a whole lot of loan officers that do a whole lot of volume. If you could just
Yeah.
give us some
There's a group of us, I mean, our team there's myself, there's Erica, who's my business partner, right? Not to be mistaken as my assistant. She is my business partner. And then we have 5 other people on our team that help us produce the loans that we produce. We also have a relatively small branch, 5 other LOs, and then I help run the division, our division that is a couple hundred loan officers across the country.
doing how much volume?
The division right now is at 2.8 billion.
So guys, like we have on this call possibly the highest producing manager in the country. I mean, there's not a lot of other leaders that are helping that many loan officers do that kind of volume and doing over 140 million in volume. So that's pretty incredible. And so why did you write this Sunday post? And as Hunter's talking, I'm going to put a link to the Sunday post. What was your why? Why that post? Why right now? What's going through your head?
Well, the why, it's a bunch of different things. And by the way, I honestly have to correct you, at least in my own head. Like I haven't been metric driven my whole life. I'm more on, I would say I'm more like into mindset and emotions, but that's been a mistake. And I think for people to, even with what Deborah said, I mean, just to start it off, if you can't, and what you said, like when you're measuring your numbers, the level of confidence that you have in what you're saying, just like to know the data, like the people that I admire the most, like I always think about like if I have to name like 5 people that I respect the most, and I think about their business acumen, they know the details of their business, right?
Who are a couple of those people? Name a couple of those 5, just so we know.
Ron, our CEO. I mean, Ron, like, I mean, he just pulls up a phone. He's just like, here, he literally, I remember last year when I was all worried about the market, blah, blah, blah. He pulls up and he pulls up his phone. He's like, Hunter, you doubled your market share last year. I'm like, how do you know that? I mean, because he knows the data so that would be one person. JJ Mazos, another person. that just understands his data. Erica Quisgard, my business partner, she understands the metrics, right? I mean, she's like in our CRM. I mean, just how many leads we got, how many, just daily. And that's the thing, I equate it to like budgeting, right? Like anybody that ever budgets, like I budget once a month, no matter what. And when I screw up, I'll look at all the transactions from the last month. And it takes me 3 hours to download all these transactions. I don't know what I spent. I'm driving my kids nuts because I'm going, why in God's name are you Ubering? Blah, 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 blah. But if I spend 2 minutes a day downloading yesterday's downloads, right? It takes you at the end of the month, it takes you about 15 minutes to do the budget from the previous month. So it's just, it's just being in front of your numbers consistently. It was exactly what Deborah said. I mean, like, you ask, this is a very long-winded way of saying, like, how did this all come about? It came about by business planning, right? And when you're trying to get 200 loan officers excited to do business planning, I'm fully aware that doing business planning is like a New Year's resolution for business, right? Everybody talks about it. And then, 2 weeks into January or the first day you actually have to pick up the phone and call somebody, you forget about everything you put into, principle in December. So this came about by a combination of things. One are how do we get the data in front of our loan officers, right? And when I started pulling all of the data and you start seeing the level of what people are closing, you just obviously at the end of the day, we're supposed to do loans for a living. If you're a loan officer, now it sounds very basic, but that's what you're doing. And if you're not producing anything, then that's obviously not good. So when we're pulling up a couple hundred different people's numbers, I started looking at just how many fundings, how many credit pulls, how many file starts, how many applications, which is, we view applications as RESPA triggered. So there's different definitions for it. But I just started, and then I started looking at my own numbers. And I hadn't really, I know my numbers through my CRM, but I'm not looking at them daily. So this activity, why I wrote about it is because I went back and reviewed all of our numbers from 2024 and where we are now and found, it's in there, right? Lead to close 24%, lead to credit 57%, lead to pre-approval 41%, pre-approval to close 57%, lock to close is 99%. So it's eye-opening for me. That's the bottom line. So that's how it started. And now I'm pushing it out. I want every person, we want every person in our division to be looking at what their metrics are. I sat down with 10 people in our office on Wednesday and, it's really telling. There's people that have a 6% close ratio. There's people that have 12%. There's most people, if they think, they just don't know what they are until they actually go through the exercise. And then the other thing, Dave, not to, I don't want to discuss my income, but when you attach the dollar amount that is, how much each lead, it's very easy. All you have to do is, once you know your year-to-date commissions and you know how many leads you got, you know what each lead is worth, right? My leads are worth thousands of dollars a piece. That changes my mindset when I'm picking up a phone call to say, is this a client I want to talk to or not? Because that lead itself is worth X, right? A credit pull is worth X amount of money. A pre-approval is worth X amount of money. A locked loan is worth X amount of money. When you break it down and you have that granularity, and that is my word, by the way, talk about a boring word for 2025. My word for 2025 is granularity. So anyway, I'll stop talking.
By the way, that is a pretty boring word, but it is a pretty powerful word at the same time. Yeah. I truly believe when I say the market matters, but your numbers matter more. And I truly believe that this conversion number, if a loan officer obsessed over that, and if a manager made it easy for their loan officers to measure that, provided resource, leadership to measure it, there's nothing they could do that would be more valuable to improving their performance like that. And it's something you can control. Do you believe that?
I believe it wholeheartedly. Yeah. It's just like if the key, the one piece that I have found, and I think, for everybody listening to this, like your systems now inside of your company, you should be able to pull this data, right? Like this data is pullable. The only thing that isn't pullable from what I've seen for people is the lead that goes into it. Like just because it's the one thing that people don't necessarily, some people are on scratch paper, some people are on a spreadsheet. It's like until the client goes in to do the application, until the credit pull happens, like that's when the company can start tracking it. The company's better at tracking it than anybody else. The problem is that you have to be able to track the lead first, because that really is what creates all the metrics. But yeah, I mean, 100%, Dave.
Yeah,
I
so
would say that the other challenge in metrics that, because you're right, that recording the lead is the hardest part, because it's only when someone starts a file or pulls a, credit app. But the other items that I feel like we don't measure are like how many agent conversations and meetings, like the activities that then lead to the success. And that's where I have seen those who do a great job at tracking those activities, they feel more confident when the market does go up or down, because they know what to double down on to still achieve the same outcome that they want. And their subconscious isn't telling them, you just got lucky. Like, yeah, you may have had a great year, but that was just luck. Because there's those who don't track those activities, they don't have the evidence of like, okay, this is what I did, and this is what can be repeatable. I just have to do more of this, so any feedback on this, which activities to track when you're also tracking metrics?
Well, I mean, and I need to do, like, we literally were sending out Matt Yacobosi, who's one of our leaders on the East Coast. We've created a document where it's like, here's what your 2024 numbers were, assuming you want to go up 15% in 2025. Here's how many phone calls you have to make. Here's how many talk tos. I mean, this is from, core days of how many phone calls you have to make, how many talk tos you have to have, how many,
Social
how
posts?
many, how many, yeah, yes, it's not, I mean, if you ask JJ and his group, like that, yes, which I don't do, Deborah, we're going to have to talk. So yeah.
Oh, I'm aware.
When what you said that makes so much sense to me is like, it's not an accident. It's not a mistake. You didn't get lucky when you're tracking your data. I mean, literally, I mean, I will say this, like every single day, I have to send my calls to my team, right? And Bridget will send out how many leads we got for the day, how many pre-approvals we issued, how many lead conversations I had, how many loans funded, how many thank you cards went out, how many gifts went out. It's every single day. And it gets sent out to the whole team so that everybody can see what my activity is and what it's producing for our team. So, and we're having a contest. I mean, our division's having a contest for Q1, and it's going to be, we're tracking all of this and we're blasting it in front of everybody's faces so everybody can see what everybody's doing to win the contest.
You better win it.
I hope so. I don't know.
Let's go.
We'll see.
yeah, well, I mean, Hunter's going to do his best. It's going to be a world-class performance, and if someone beats it, it's another world-class performance, and Hunter will be very happy because he will have inspired that and provided leadership to help that type of success happen. And I hope any
By the way,
manager,
it's teams. It's 20 teams. It's 20 teams inside of our division. So it's super cool.
yeah, no, it sounds amazing. And I would just urge anyone that is in leadership right now, this is a winning strategy. This is the type of thinking, the type of leadership that you need to implement in a market like this, because we're no longer in a market where we think, at least I don't know anybody that is planning on rates getting into the fours right now. When you look at what people are planning on, like we're just hoping for a five handle, and that's not a unanimous. The NBA still has 5.5 as a four handle in their projections, but you're seeing a lot of the biggest players in the country start to adjust that. And so the market that we need to perform in is somewhere, but a little higher than where it's at right now. Could get to 5.5, and if it gets into the low sixes, we're obviously going to have rate and term refis. But what can you control? You can't control rates, but you can control how well you manage your metrics, and you can control how well you implement best practices from a data perspective that influence those metrics. So I just push every manager and leader to take this very seriously.
And Dave, like from a like I know metrics are boring, but like if I'm talking to a realtor and I know what my closing ratios are with that realtor, and I can talk and I can ask questions to that realtor, hey, or they don't, if I'm not working with them yet, and we start talking about, hey, does your existing lender talk to you about what your conversion ratios are together, right? Like, do you talk about what would impact your conversion ratios? I mean, you've heard me talk about it. It's like what impacts conversion ratios on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Is it a handwritten thank you card? Is it speed to the lead? Is it more? I mean, for us and our team, I mean, it's like presenting a mortgage coach is a huge thing for us on your conversion ratio, right? The consistency of it's not. It might sound boring, but it makes you smarter. It makes you have. We always wonder, like, God, what do we say to a realtor? What I mean, have an impactful conversation about conversion ratios with them. Ask them challenging questions about what their metrics are. Help them understand, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, you made $500,000 last year. You had 50 leads. Have you thought about the fact, like the value of what those leads are, right? And not all leads are created equal, right? Depending on how we refer each other has an impact on the conversion ratio. So you're having way bigger conversations. You sound smarter. You're like, it's like you're on offense as opposed to just trying to spew a bunch of BS to get an opportunity. So, I mean, to me, you're just playing at a completely different level when you are talking about metrics and you are talking about numbers. Not everybody wants to be your best friend, but everybody wants to be more successful, right? So if you can help a realtor be more successful by how you're communicating and getting, that's one of the things I think about all the time with like, I interviewed, do you work with FM Fairmars?
Yeah,
I don't know if okay, so we did
I'm not the coach, but I know Fairmont.
okay, so we did a call last week with our company. There's like 1,500 LOs on it, and we were talking about like what's your sweet spot, right? And his sweet spot is doing presentations. For me, my sweet spot is calling on whales, big realtors, because for me, going back to this type of a conversation, we like to have bigger conversations around business type of performance, and being able to talk about metrics and knowing these things inside the back of your head, because you're looking at them on a more consistent basis than most people, it makes you look more professional and smarter. And so anyway, I was talking about calling on whales because like if I can call on a whale, those whales then refer you to realtors that do less than they do. And it's like it's an automatic when a whale's referring me to another realtor, there's an automatic level of respect where they're looking at me either as a partner or even an advisor at times. So anyway, I mean that's metrics are not. You can make the argument metrics are freaking sexy. They're not boring. They're freaking sexy.
Yeah. And just not to go down a rabbit hole, but I interviewed Sean Herrero, who's another $100 million producer, and he's measuring uh, conversion for both him and the realtor based on how they were referred. So he knows what his conversion is if it was text. He knows what his conversion was if it was email. And he's able to have that conversation. And now with this NAR settlement behind us, realtors care about their conversion more than
Yeah,
ever. So when you can be a conversion partner with your realtors and talk about, hey, here's the best way to refer me so that I can help you convert more buyers. And by the way, you know what another conversion is? People that are interested in buying to actually getting into escrow. And I have, like, if you know those metrics, you can make a case that, you know what, referring to me is not, yes, it's going to close the loan on time. Yes, I'm going to give great communication. But more importantly than all that, I'm going to help you convert at the highest possible commission for you. And let me show you how I do that.
yeah.
So, guys, conversion is the theme of 2025.
Dave,
Here's what I want.
do you know how Sean tracks that? Because that is, by the way, like that's the hardest thing for everybody, including me, right? Like I know,
I think he just
I
writes it
mean,
down, like old school, you know.
yeah.
But it was 2 interviews ago. Paul, if you can think of which interview that was of Sean, share it in chat, and I'm sure I can. You know, I'll text Sean
I'll
while we're
call. I
talking.
mean, I'll call. Sean's a good buddy of mine. I'll call him too.
No, but I would love to. to bring that into this call. So here's what we're going to do, guys. We're almost at halftime into this mastermind. Uh, First of all, read this, study this, share this with your friends. Also, guys, sign up, become a member, get this Sunday Thoughts. It's truly one of the best newsletters around leadership. Hunter has been doing it since 2014. He started off just doing this for the people that he coached. You know, Hunter was a core coach and he's coaches a lot of loan officers. Over the years, people have heard about it and more people have got added to the list. I think it was probably 2018 or so that I got on the list. And now it's become a thing. Hunter, how many people do you have on your list now subscribe getting this?
I think it's a couple thousand, Dave. I know you always get mad at me. You think, but between you and Deborah, it should be like, if I use social media, it'd be tens
Well,
of thousands.
by the way, Deborah, I'm telling Hunter that he should do his Sunday Thoughts, both email version and a social media version. We could take that offline. And one, he would give more value to the industry. And two, he would get more value because he's giving more value. So sidebar on that.
I thought he inspired you to start doing your once a week leadership
I
video. Dave.
probably, yeah. I
Thanks,
don't know
Deborah.
if I directly got that, but the once a week, every Monday now, I do a hey, what's up, branch managers? I'm sure this influenced that. So Hunter, I want you to pretend that the audience for like the next 10, 15 minutes is your group of loan officers that you delivered this message to. And it's not like I'm not asking you to do like role play around it, but I do want to get a sense of how you delivered this to your team. And I think that would really be valuable for everyone in this community to get a little Hunter Markwart leadership. You know, like how did you deliver this message to the people that you have leadership role with?
I went around the horn and I had I had their numbers. I think that's probably something that's important for everybody to understand is your systems should be able to pull your people's numbers with the exception of how many leads they got, right? So I went around the horn and I gave everybody what their numbers were, right? And we started to go through. I just had them start calculating
Was
what
this on
are
a meeting? This a Zoom meeting that everybody was on?
a combination of both, right? So if I'm talking about like what I did last week in the conference room, it's literally going through and helping everybody. First thing you do is how many people track their leads, right? About 70%. I think if I had to use a number, 70% of the people track their leads. Although then again, I mean, it's like, the accuracy of that 70% is probably something, to be desired. But I just went through with that sheet that is on the Sunday Thoughts, and we went around the horn and I had them go lead to close, right? What's that conversion ratio? I had them go credit to close. What's that conversion ratio? I had them go pre-approval to close. What's that conversion ratio? Then I went back and I monetized it for them, right? So take your current income divided by your number of leads. What's that number? We went around the horn. And just to give you an example, right? Like the people's leads were worth, the person with a 6% conversion ratio, we ranged between $3,500 and $1,400 a lead. Okay. Even at 300, I mean, I shouldn't say even at a $350 lead that's valuable, right? Most of them were between 650 and 1,500. Like when you start thinking about it like that, it's a change in your mindset, right? So I went around and I had each person monetize what each one of those categories were. And then we went around the horn to say, okay, what is one thing we're going to work on in the next quarter to increase those conversion ratios, right? Is it speed to the lead? Is it, how you're referring people? Is it doing business planning with your business partners? So, that's what I did, Dave. And then we're going to go back. And the key right now for me that I have to be held accountable for massively with my operations folks and my Bridget, my assistant, is making sure that it is in my calendar the first Monday after every month to go back and review my numbers, but also everybody else's numbers. So I mean, because I think just the thought of being aware of it alone is at least 50% of the battle, right? Like you are hungrier to show up. Like after I went through this exercise, Dave, you got those Sunday thoughts on Sunday, obviously. Monday, I had 5 back-to-back lead calls. And I was like, my JJ thinks that you should be able to get 70% credit pull on a lead call, which is pretty freaking high, but it's not even something I tracked. So my number is 58%, right? And I went, wait a second. So my number is 58%. These 5 lead calls, I am getting these people to get their credit pulled. Because if I can go from 58 to 70 with my volume, it changed. If I like, this is where to me the magic in the data, because if you have data, it doesn't lie. You go back and it just is what it is, right? So the bottom line is, if I take my credit pull from 56 or 57% to 70%, like JJ thinks I should be able to do, guess what it does to my my closings? If you had to take a guess without reading my Sunday thoughts, what do you think my volume does? How much more volume do I have if I go from 57 to 70%?
I mean, double. I mean, a lot. I mean, I don't know if it's double, but
It's
more than
it's
50%.
for me, it's 33 million in production, right?
So
Like
about 30, that's about
it's
25%.
so I go up $33 million in production if I can take my credit pulls from 57 to 70%. So how fun is that? Every single time I get off a call, did I win that call to get that ratio up? Right. And it's just like, that's the granular. That's why I think granular is kind of sexy now. Right. I mean, it's like, it changes your mindset. And if the team's looking at it and we know, like, the other thing is just the more you're talking, like all of a sudden I just started talking about it. I wasn't talking about data for a long time now. And I'd get on your calls, by the way, you'd ask me some question. And I mean, just feel like a dumbass. I'm like, I don't know, Dave. I mean, it's like, don't ask me that one. I don't know the answer. I mean, it's like, I want to know the answers to all the numbers. And I think that's what we all should be thinking in 2025. So
Yeah. So, hey, I'm going to post a poll question, guys. Please answer this like quick, like within 30 seconds. How well do you track your leads? Number one, you do not track them. Number two, I'm okay. Number three, I track my leads weekly, so I'm like pretty good at it. Number four is I'm great at tracking my leads daily, so you're on it. And then number five, you're obsessed. You track your leads and your results prove it. So guys, where are you? All right, now less than 50% of you have voted. So first of all, we're having a sales meeting. If you guys want to get value from this sales meeting, participate. Um, let's go. Let's get it up. I mean, 50% of you guys have voted. Why get in the game? Give
This
us a
is
vote.
like asking people to disclose like how much they weigh.
And
You
by
do
the way, I
realize
don't
that.
know who's voting what number, so this is anonymous. I'm not going to call out any names. So, so by the way, Hunter, where would you have voted for yourself today? Like, I think you're a five. You sound
I'm a
pretty upset.
5. I'm
Yeah.
a 5.
And where were you 2 years ago?
I mean, maybe a 4. I mean, we're pretty good at try. I mean, it's like, I don't know
So
how anybody, if you just ask the question, like, how are you of value to your leads, to your realtor partners, if you don't track what they send you, right? I mean, it's like, I mean, one of my lines for my business partners is you hand us your livelihood on a silver platter. That livelihood is called a lead, right? And then it's up to us what we do with it. I mean, if you don't track someone's leads, it's like, it's crazy to me.
Well, don't you think
yeah,
it also reveals like, that the agents who send you like only shit leads or people who can't credit qualify, or those who it's always a 911 and it's Saturday at 10 p.m. and they're like demanding for a pre-approval letter, and then like the next day they're executing a contract with a new build. Like, don't you think it also reveals the quality of your partners?
Yeah, yes. I mean, to be able to go back and I guess at some point, like it's why we need to keep talking about this, because I think I forget what people don't do, right? And it's just like, if you have a business partner that sends you 20 leads and you closed 10 of them, they should be your best friends. If you send someone that sends you 30 leads and you close one of them, you either need to have, and those people, by the way, for people that are like trying to hone in their skills on sales, like when you have, you can't screw up a 50% conversion ratio relationship. You can get your teeth, I mean, it's like if you're talking to someone that's sent 30 leads and you've closed one, that's when you just go, and we talked about it in the meeting. It's like, you got to go back to those people and say, Deborah, like, I love working with you, but do you understand that we've had 30 opportunities together and I've closed one of those? So I'm either doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong, or we're doing something wrong. Let's talk about it, right? And be able to have those conversations, because you were tracking data, is important. So,
So
and yeah,
guys,
I mean,
here's
yesterday I had another person. I had a realtor that, I'm talking about the lead. I'm talking, and I can hear the lady in the background, the client. I can hear her say, "We still need to call the other two names that she recommended." And I'm just like, she always does that to me. And I'm like, I just I don't have time for her anymore. And I told Bridget, I'm like, Bridget, I don't like, I'll give those leads to someone else that can try to convert her, because I'm not interested. So
so here's how y'all voted on this call. Couple of you don't track. Most of you said you do it okay. I'm assuming that the 50% or 40, it ended up being about 40% that did not vote, probably are not tracking. So literally the majority of the audience, I'm going to assume, is two or less. Hopefully you came to this call. I would highly advocate you. Only one person voted I'm obsessed. So, and it wasn't Hunter because he's a panelist, so he couldn't vote. So I would really urge you guys, like if you're in leadership, if you're in management, be a level 5 tracker of your leads and be a level 5 tracker of the conversion of those leads. If you do those two things, you will have a good year. Obviously, macroeconomics, if we get rates with a 5 handle, you have an even better year. But the wind will be blowing at our back instead of our face. But you will win this race if you obsess over those two metrics. Like nothing more important than that. So with that said, let's transition. We still got about a third of the call left, and let's get into tactics that improve conversion. So what do you think, Hunter? And let's just try to focus on three tactical things that would improve conversion. I'll start the conversation a little bit.
yeah.
I think scripting matters. There are some word choices, some phrases, and some, not that people need to have scripts, but there are just the way people approach conversations. I think that matters. And then I have data and evidence that when a mortgage coach is delivered, that versus a fee worksheet, that it's at least a 10% improvement in conversion. I mean, I've got evidence and data from multiple lenders, from hundreds, thousands of loan officers that support that is a conversion booster. Do you agree with those two? And what are some other things?
Well, I can tell you, like, with what I'm doing, right? Like, I'll never lie to you about, it's like we all talk about in-person meetings. I don't, in the Bay Area, people are not driving from San Francisco to meet with me in Walnut Creek. They're just not. I I convert so one thing, by the way, is convert your leads, right? Like, have a massively impactful upfront conversation. We've talked about my LP2 notes on, I'm looking for personality type. I'm looking for every detail of what they're trying to accomplish. I'm looking for kids' names. I'm looking for why they're moving, what the urgency is, whatever. And I get that data to the business partner the second the phone call is done. But what I have done is I've gotten lazy on my calls, in that they're all phone calls. I'm doing all, if I would take a guess right now, it's probably 90% phone calls. So what I'm doing, we have a team meeting for Q1 planning at 10:30 today, in 50 minutes. And my number one thing for Bridget is every single call that gets scheduled, just like I'm trying to go from a 57% on credit pulls to a 70% on credit pulls, I want 90% Zoom calls instead of phone calls, right? Like,
Mm.
so that's something that I'm going to do to see if that has an impact on my closing ratio, right? Because if I do that and people are comfortable with me, that's going to move the 56, 57% to 70%, because we're just going to be more relational together. That's one thing. Um, I know these are big things, but like proactive versus reactive communication. I'm switching this happened 20 minutes before our call. I also forwarded it to my team to like, guys, this is what it feels like. I think we're good at proactive versus reactive communication, but I'm switching my insurance providers. This guy and his team emailed me, wasn't expecting it, just saying, Hunter, we wanted to let you know we are in the process of transitioning everything. We will have more data for you after Christmas. Have a happy holiday. It's just one thing that takes stuff off of your mind. You look more professional when you are proactive versus reactive. So like every single time someone's emailing you, asking you for an update or something of that nature, you either didn't clearly communicate with them what your process looks like, or you didn't do your job, right? So if I'm getting incoming phone calls asking for updates, we're not doing something right. So I would tell everybody, be proactive consistently. It makes you look professional. And then Dave, I'm always going to say it because, and not because I'm on, you know, that you converted me probably 8 years ago to use to use Mortgage Coach as a tool to supply data. We have gone in the last 2 years where it is just, I mean, I believe it's the most powerful conversion ratio that we have. And I'm still, I mean, I almost don't want you to have more clients because it's like, it's amazing to me how many people don't use Mortgage Coach. Like I literally get intimidated when someone sends me a quote saying, hey, this is what the other person sent me, and it's in Mortgage Coach format. I'm like, shit. It's like I feel like they're like one up. I'm like, God, like they know my secret. So the using Mortgage Coach would absolutely. I guess we're talking to the wrong audience because if you're listening to this, you're probably using Mortgage Coach. But I mean, that is being able to give people the data consistently. I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you said 3 things, but I mean, like people have to believe that you are in it with them to get the house, right? I say it to every single client. You need to believe that you have a greater chance of home ownership with me as your lender, or you shouldn't work with me. And then the things that we do behind the scenes, which is customized pre-approval letter every time, customized Mortgage Coach, every single offer that goes in, right? Every single offer that goes in. Then we don't need to deal with 99. I have a 99% lock to close ratio, 99%. So that is because of Mortgage Coach. Someone's writing an offer on Monday. The offer gets accepted Tuesday. We went through what the market was looking like on Monday with what the rates look like. So the lot call takes 5 minutes instead of sitting there negotiating, right? I mean, things like that. So
I have a
guys,
question for you, Hunter, if that's
Mhm.
okay. When you do your lead calls, do you send them to an application link afterwards to then have them apply, or do you take it over the phone, or how do you?
I do. I send them, I have a conversation. My goal is to have, I mean, it's almost like a loan app, but I'm not asking for social security numbers. I'm not asking. So I will, when we're done with the conversation, I always say there's 2 things we're going to do. One thing is I'm going to send you an opt out ahead of time, just so you don't just get bombarded with phone calls. I'm going to send you a link to our application. You can upload all the documents securely, depending on your urgency. And I always want you to understand, Deborah, that you're important to us. If it's not urgent, we're going to take 72 hours to look at the data. If it's urgent, we're going to do it the same day, but then we're going to get everything reviewed. And then I'm going to come back to you. You suggested that you wanted to look at between $1 million and 1.5. So we're going to start with a presentation that's at $1 million, that's at $1,250,000 and $1,500,000. In the next call, we're going to go through every single detail on closing costs. We're going to go through every single deal, every single payment structure. And I will say, Deborah, one of the things that people hate about lenders is you go into contract, everything seems super easy up front, and then all hell breaks loose, the numbers. So we want to make sure that you understand whether or not it's transfer tax. So that's what we're doing. So
Have
yes.
you thought about, or do you measure just how much time it typically from your lead conversation to them actually applying? If you get most of the information over the phone as it is, could you just take a basic app right there so they don't have to then take the time? Because I'm one of those where I'm so busy that if someone sent me a link to apply, like it's probably going to get lost in email and it may take 2 weeks. And it's not that it's not important to me. busy. So if a loan officer was like, hey, if you have like 3 extra minutes, we'll go ahead and complete the loan app. I just need your social, date of birth, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll send you an email of what things we need. Like that to me would be a convenience that would save on time and would help conversion, because then you're not following up with me and chasing me down.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah. I
thought.
know. I mean, I think it's totally relevant.
All right, guys. So I want to call out a couple things, and I want to make a little announcement. I have officially made a Hunter Marckwardt playlist. So guys, while we were sitting here talking, because I'm ADD, and I'm like, you know what? Hunter's amazing. He's obsessed with conversion. I'm obsessed with conversion. I did my first interview with Hunter 9 years ago. We got an interview here that got 31 views. I don't know what happened there. Uh,
That's the one
and
where my boys made fun of you and me for how we high-fived each other. I mean, we crossed knuckles. My boys were just like, Dad, you guys are freaking idiots.
yeah, yeah. And then
We
I
need to
think
create a meme out of that.
it's somewhere around here I got in trouble because I used to say your name wrong. And
Yeah.
one of Hunter's kids goes like, Dad, why does that guy say our name that way? And I was just like, oh my God. So I got it right now, Mark Wart. I think it used to be Mark Warts. Um,
Yeah.
but guys, follow Hunter. I think it was this sales optimization playbook where we really broke down a lot of his process. And I want you to get a couple things from this. Number one, did like when I first started interviewing Hunter, he was starting to use a mortgage coach, but he wasn't using it consistently. He'd use it when, he got grinded or he felt like he needed.
Oh, and someone asked for numbers. Someone said, "Hey, could you send me your numbers?" I'm like, yeah, shit. Hey team, you get that mortgage coach out.
And now you hear it's consistently. I'm going to write a post on LinkedIn next week, and this is going to be the image in that. I don't know where I saw this, but I saw it a couple days ago, and I'm like, you know what? I got to write an article on that because ideas are easy, execution is hard, consistency is even harder because this is where the gold is. Like this is where you don't have to worry about interest rates if you have best practices and you execute those consistently. Any thoughts on that, Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, I, I think the question for all of us is just how do you, I mean, even with me, right? How do you take my transition from using you as a a spreadsheet on steroids to now using it literally every single day, right? I mean, it's like we don't not use Mortgage Coach on a single loan that we do. Literally, if we closed 200 loans in a year, there are 200 mortgage coaches that go behind those 200 loans. So I do believe I don't know that consistency is harder once you actually get the balls in motion. To me, it's that transition from that one light to the 5 lights. And I think the only way that you can get there is to see the success that it has, right? Like we started seeing clients going, I love that thing that you sent me, right? Realtors saying, hey, that thing that you sent the client, they love it. So those were the types of things that started to have an influence to just say, holy crap, our conversion ratios change because of these guys, right? I mean, it literally creates a partnership with our clients, as opposed to just being one of 3 vendors that they're working with.
Yeah, so push on that. I'm going to push a pull in a minute, as I just want to get a sense of people on this call, what percent of your leads get a mortgage coach. So stay tuned for that. Let's talk about you because you also mentioned that at the point of relationship, you're asking questions. So it sounds like it's almost like a script where you are saying the same things. Obviously, you're tailoring that, but how important are your questions and how important are the words and phrases you use in conversion? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the questions are important, but how you're saying, it's like that quote, right? I don't think it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Um, it, I don't know whether or not it's 50-50. I don't know. I mean, I think the questions that I ask are very good. I was going to try to pull them up for you right now, but we don't need to do that. But yeah, I mean, like, do people know that you care about them, right? It's how you're saying it. It's like, hey, Deborah, I understand that I go through this every day. You don't. So please know that when I want to understand why, like, why are you trying to buy a house right now? Like, what is it? Why are you trying to buy a house right now? Having those conversations with, having people understand me saying, hey, like Dave, there's what a lender will approve you for, and there's what's in your best interest. And those two numbers are not always the same. So we want to make sure that we're reviewing numbers that are, one, we have to get your loan approved, of course, but we need to make sure that you're going to be comfortable with what these payments look like after the fact. So I want to make sure that when we're reviewing everything, if there's a budget that you want me to look at for you, discuss with you, whatever, let's talk about that, right? So I mean, that's just me. That's just how I say things. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, does that make sense?
To me, it sounds like that's the difference of creating an experience versus just doing a transaction. And it reminds me of,
Yeah.
like, I have 4 kids. And so when we had our first child, you go to the hospital and they take you to your room, and to the nurses and doctors, it was like just standard order of operations. And you just felt like it was a conveyor belt. But for us, we were having our first child, and it was like, we think it's a really big deal. And so it didn't feel like it was that special with them or how they handle you, just because, I mean, it was like, get them in, get them out. And I think with
Yeah.
the questions, from what it sounds like, what you ask, it hits that show me that you know me button, where they feel like you really understand their problem or challenge and you care about them. It's more than just give me date of birth, social security number, what's your
Totally.
budget, Mhm.
It's reverse, to me, it's like, I call it like reversing the lens, right? If you're on the other end of this conversation, what does it feel like, right? Like, what does it feel like to be on the other end of a conversation with me? And the energy that I put into that call and the excitement that they feel is going to have an impact on whether or not they trust me, right? And then, to me, there's this whole thing, and I feel like I'm on repeat on some of these things that I talk about, but it's like there's the perception of value, and then there's the delivering of value. And people hate salespeople because they create a perception of value and then they don't execute on it, right? If you can get those two things right, where you create the perception of value and then you actually execute on it, to me, that truly is where the magic happens. And yeah, with those clients, how they feel when they're done talking to us means everything, right? It just does.
So one last topic, guys, give a quick push on this poll. Only 35% of you have voted. Let's get north of 50. Just click a button real quick. What percentage of your leads get a mortgage coach experience? Never. Number one, I send mortgage coach sometimes. A lot of my leads get it. Most of my leads get it, or I'm obsessed. Every lead gets mortgage coach. So we're almost, oh, boom, we just went past 50%. And sounds like you're obsessed now, Hunter. And this is how the audience voted. I mean, no surprise, the majority of you are using Mortgage Coach, but not enough of you are obsessed. I highly recommend you get obsessed with measuring these things. You get obsessed with a consistent execution. I will push you. The words you use matter. Like, I have people all the time tell me that, hey, I give people the link to the Mortgage Coach and not everybody clicks on it. Why not?
Yes.
Like Mortgage Coach is broken or something. And then I talk to Hunter or someone that's really good, and everybody clicks on it.
Well, like, Dave, I'll give you, so, I mean, jump off of Mortgage Coach and like these LP2 notes that I fill these notes out, right? And I think about the realtor reading the notes, right? And then I hand it off to, and it's like, how were they referred? They met you at an open house. They said that there was a great connection. Way to go, Dana, right? I'll put like, way to go, Dana, you're crushing it, right? I give it to other loan officers, and they send me an example of them filling out LP2 notes. And it's like, how did they meet you? Open house, purchase price, 400, down payment, 10%. It's like, dude or dudette, it's like, it's the details, it's the words around it. I mean, it's like, it's amazing to me that people, it's truly sending out Mortgage Coach without doing a video or a voice recording against it. I mean, it's just, there's no point in doing something 80% and then not, I mean, it's the 20% extra that's going to get you the conversion ratios that shift 50%.
Exactly.
I was
So
going to
guys,
ask if you measure that, the number of TCAs that you send with a video or without.
Every single one of them's with. I mean, unless we've already established the rapport with these people where they're like almost on the phone with us saying, hey, we're writing an offer at such and such. Oh, that was another thing I was going to say. Like when, I think you've talked about this before, like when you're doing pre-approvals for people, take an extra minute to look at the house and comment on it to them before they're writing the offer. That also makes you feel like you're more connected. But unless someone's literally just, hey, we're writing an offer at 1.6, can you send it up? Can you send us updated numbers? And we've already talked to them 3 times, because we literally, I mean, granted, most of our offers, we're hoping that they get accepted in, at least by offer number 3, but every single time, I mean, like, I'm not exaggerating, every single time they're writing an offer, they get a mortgage coach ahead of time. So
guys, I think you've got a lot of value today. Words matter. I do want to remind everybody, this coming month, I can't remember the date. I'll have Deborah share the date. Deborah and Todd are going to be putting on a special 2-day workshop on exactly what to say. I'm personally going to be attending this. I think we've only got 3 spots left. What days are you putting on the exactly what to say workshop?
It's a Thursday, Friday, and it's January 30th and 31st.
So anybody that wants to go to that, I will be attending that. If you want to have incredible scripting around everything that you do, how to get meetings with realtors, what to call and what to say when you have an annual review, how to have an incredible conversation with consumers, come to that workshop. Phil Jones is amazing. That book is amazing. It will improve your conversion. Deborah, if you could put a link for anyone that wants to sign up for it. And then also, by the way, I think Todd gave me, I don't know, you said like 2 or 3 people I could give a $500 discount to. If anybody hears this, email me, Dave at Mortgage Coach, and I'll loop you in with Todd and Deborah, and hope to see some mortgage coaches at that 2-day event. It is a pretty small group, right? Like you can only have like 15-ish people.
Yes, it's done by design that way. And so we did do a Thursday, Friday, and it is going to be in Orange County. So for those of you who want to make a weekend out of it, you can make it a weekend, but it is, yes, the max is 16 people. So
And
Hunter,
if
we'll see you there.
Yeah, we would love to see you there. And I'll put on, if depending on the timing, I'll do a sunrise walk one of the days. So Hunter, we got a minute left. Closing thoughts, bro. Pretend that
well,
you're
one,
talking.
I apologize. I will do a better job next time looking at the questions on the right-hand side to answer for people. So sorry about that.
Oh, me
Um,
too. I do a better job of that myself.
yeah. By the way, as far as just, well, instead of answering a question, the other thing I talked about, going back to numbers, if you take 3 weeks of vacation a year, you have 1,920 hours left in a 40-hour work week. To not spend the time right now to invest, I mean, like, why would you go and spend 1,920 hours next year without having a better plan of how to be more successful than you were in 2024? That's what I would say to people. It's like, just monetize your hours, understand your metrics, understand the value of what those metrics are, understand that, a dollar amount needs to be allocated to a lead, a credit pull, a pre-approval, and a closed loan. And when you do that, when you know those numbers, it will change how serious you take your livelihood, is what I would say.
All right, guys. Well, Hunter, really appreciate every Sunday, your Sunday thoughts. I get a lot of value from that. I appreciate you saying yes. I just looked, I've interviewed you 21 times. So 21 times you've made time to come to this community and bring the gold. I hope we can keep this conversation going about conversion, and just really appreciate you. And so
Thanks,
everybody
brother.
who's in,
Deborah,
we
great to spend time with you too.
Yes, you too.
Any closing thoughts for you?
We got 2 weeks left of the year, so, dominate and elevate.
Boom. Dominate and
Go.
elevate, guys. You heard it.
That's a
Have a
Deion
great day.
Sanders. All right.
Yeah, go
Bye,
go.
everybody.
Take care.
Take care.